This is a public art class that was developed by me as a special topics course for advanced level students from any discipline who might be interested in doing artwork on specific OSU sites. They don't necessarily have to know how to make anything, but they've got to be advanced in their conceptual thinking enough and be interested in art making practice enough to be able to complete the class and stay interested in it. I keep it very small, so in this case it's only 4 students. They all happen to be architecture students, and one's also an art history major. And I've picked 2 sites on campus, and this is the first site, which is Burns and Ann Sargis's house. There's nothing like extending the classroom into an actual space where people get real-life experiences. It's much different than making something in a classroom when you're dealing with sculpture and especially with public art.
I actually was born in California and lived in Nebraska a lot of my life. And when I think of Oklahoma, I think of red dirt. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to think about, but the dirt is something that's so much a part of what we are in Oklahoma. So that's kind of what I had started. This idea is that, like, this dirt isn't dirt, it's a foundation, and it's kind of the beginning of where we're going in life, you know, and this is kind of an abstract representation of it. I think I started off, like, originally thinking that I was just going to have it do whatever it wanted to, because I wanted it to kind of capture the pervasiveness of dirt. But it eventually kind of came to the idea that that's not going to really practically work. You know, we have to measure things and come out and build it. And I had noticed how the house and the shadows are these big diagonal lines, and I actually got the shape and the measurements all from a shadow that had been cast. And I thought that really in the end it was a really kind of neat thing to do, because it has a dialogue with the site. It makes sense to see the shadows and the shape relate to the house. The shadows are never going to be the same again, so it's kind of neat because you get a sense of time with, like, the clay cracking and the shadows changing, and everything is really inconsistent.
One of the first things I was looking at was the construction that's been going on around campus, and it kind of led me to think that the campus is ever-changing. In the 5 years that I've been here, it looks so much different than from when I first got here. And so one of the things that I was trying to capture with my piece was this idea that the college itself, its principles and its founding ideas are never changing, but the form and the faculty and the programs that it offers are constantly changing. So my piece, I was able to create a metaphor where a set of geometric triangles that are all the same create one flat piece that can be molded into any shape, and it can move, and it's hinged, and it allows for the molding that takes place with the actual campus. I've always liked to construct things and build things, and it's part of the reason I went into architecture, and so it was one of the first chances to actually create one of my ideas from scratch, and so it was kind of an interesting experience. And I guess some of the things I've learned from it is just the amount of time it takes to get something to a certain amount of detail, and also how much detail you need to put into something. There's areas where you could have spent more time finessing something that no one will ever see, and you start to learn when you can stop with the construction process.
The material I used, it's got a wooden frame, and it's clad in cardboard, which is then it's duct taped together at the edges, and then it's got an epoxy resin coating, several coats of that, and then it's got an exterior paint and then a top coat. So it's perfectly sealed. It will last the month that they're supposed to be out here. The piece relates to the university and its growth from a small agricultural college to a massive university that operates on the national and international level by having a very simple rectangular base. And then as it grows taller, it gets very complicated, and you don't really know which direction it's going to take off next. And the piece is titled "Additional Turns Are Expected" because the university isn't done growing, and this piece does feel like if I were to add on to it, it wouldn't feel out of place. Like, it can take more turns and just keep manipulating itself into a more complicated form, similar to the way the university has grown since its foundation. What I learned in making this piece was a better appreciation for materials and how they can be assembled and constructed relative to one another. I'm used to just drawing in the studio and theoretically having somebody else build it, but in building this I was at the mercy of the elements. I couldn't work all night because epoxy doesn't dry below 60 degrees. So it was really interesting to have to work on a piece that I couldn't ultimately control from start to finish. I was heavily influenced by environmental factors, and that was something I really appreciated for the building.
The idea for this piece of art was that I wanted to publicly celebrate the president, Burns Hargis, and his wife and their arrival at Oklahoma State University. They brought a sense of intimacy to the university that's sort of unparalleled in the recent years. And I wanted to sort of display that in a way that is visible to the public. And so it's actually a sweeping piece made out of bamboo that provides a canopy next to the tree. And so it has not only just a sense of intimacy, but also energy that sort of relates to Burns as well, the way that he has brought a newness and freshness to the university. The first idea was actually to have a broad sweeping bamboo structure that went between all three trees on the yard, and that it would begin to occupy the space in a way that was obviously celebratory. And bamboo was really the only material that I could find locally, that basically cost nothing that could do that. And as I began to refine the idea, it became smaller, as you can see, but still carried that idea of movement through the yard and occupying the space. One thing that is sort of interesting in this course is that everything couldn't be planned beforehand. I had to figure out how things were going to connect, at the moment that I was building them. And so it provided challenges that weren't foreseeable in the same manner that traditional construction is. And that was a good experience to be able to deal with that, because a lot of times in any field, experimentation is necessary to have the field grow over time. And so doing it in a small scale setting like this it's a good grounds for experimentation.